We are here to talk about, of course, what happened 30 years ago, but also look at it, most importantly, perhaps unlike the first hour, from the perspective of young people, young Sikhs, young British Punjabis, Sikh and Hindu, and how they feel 1984 has shaped their life. And also, quite importantly, look into and investigate whether there is a rift between the older generation and the younger generation, with the younger generation perhaps frustrated at the lack of progress, and the older generation worried about what they may feel is increased anger and frustration, and perhaps even separation. So we will go into that. I do want to hear from you as well. If you're a young British Sikh, Sikh Punjabi or Hindu Punjabi listening to the BBC Asian Network right now, I'd be very interested to know what you think about 1984 and how it has affected you and your family. Sunny Hundal, author of India Dishonoured, journalist and blogger, welcome to the show. Also, of course, from Basics of Sikhi, Jagraj Singh, welcome to the show as well.
Morning.
To both of you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks,
Nihal. We also, of course, have Sarabjit Singh from RajoanaTV as well with us in our studios in Birmingham. Sarabjit, very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nihal. Nice to meet you.
Sarabjit, if I can start with you.
Yep.
Tell me, is there a disconnect between older Sikhs and younger Sikhs when it comes to issues around 1984? Is there unity?
I think when we talk about the issue of unity or disunity, I think it's more of the approach that's been taken.
So is there a difference in approach?
I think there is a difference in approach, and I'm not going to lump everyone in the same group.
No, quite.
But with a lot of the older generation, there's this sort of culture of waving a kirpan in the air and shouting out down India government, without actually giving a full rationale as to what's happened, why it's happened, and how it continues to happen. Which is why I think people like myself and like Jagraj and many others out there feel that we as British Sikhs who are educated, born and bred here, who live in a civil democratic society, use those skills to try and get out what's actually happened, because for 30 years the story still hasn't come out, and a lot of stuff that's been peddled for 30 years continues to be peddled, which is why we think we need to use our expertise to tell the story. And that's not to say that the older generation they failed. They haven't failed. They used what was what the tools that they had, which is jump in cars and do some protests.
But also as well, Sarabjit, just to be clear as well, of course, perhaps the older generation were fighting against racism in a way that a younger generation doesn't have to. They were preoccupied with getting jobs and houses for people like you and me that we could grow up. So they didn't have the time. Now, luckily, we live in a situation now where Sikhs have fought for a lot of rights that they have in this country and are very well regarded in this society. Yeah. So now you have the time and you have the voice.
Of course. And after we started RajoanaTV, Nihal, an article came out in the Hindu, which is, I think, India's second largest national newspaper. And they were talking about the impact of RajoanaTV and some of the other Diaspora
and how were you described by them?
Well, it's quite funny. I was described as a sort of suave, articulate speaker who doesn't wave a kirpan in the air and doesn't shout "Jo bole so Nihal," not that there's anything wrong with that, but he's actually talking in a logical manner. And in that article, it says that the police and the authorities are finding it hard to combat this new arena, this new sort of cyber arena where we're sort of getting our point across. For too long, they've been able to label us terrorists and extremists in their media, state-owned media. But now that we've got our own media in our own hands, we've got sort of interactive, we've got the internet to our hands, we can start telling the story. And they were saying in the last line of the article, it said, what's worrying is that even normal Sikhs are following the logic. Now, why would a journalist be so alarmed that people are following some kind of logic? So I don't think that we're doing anything radical. I don't think we're doing anything new. What we are doing is using the tools of the time to tell the story, and I think it's way more effective than perhaps standing on stages and cursing a government with just slogans.
Jagraj Singh from Basics of Sikhi, do you agree with much of what Sarabjit Singh has said in terms of the different approach now, and that perhaps the approach that younger Sikhs such as yourself are employing is a more effective one?
No, absolutely. I almost feel like all the points I wrote down on paper when I sat down, he's just kind of been able to see them on my shoulder.
Sarabjit, you can apologise to Jagraj for taking all his points.
All the sail out of my wind. The thing is, though, absolutely, the Sikhs nowadays are approaching things systematically. They're coming with education, with logic, and also I think with PR. The Indian government has a massive PR machine. Propaganda was extreme. 1984 is a very divisive issue amongst the Sikhs. You've seen today people calling and saying, I am a Sikh and I think it's wrong for you to discuss this. I was listening outside. So this is very divisive. It's never happened before.
Well, just opinions about
but we've had
Janelle Bindramullah itself within the Sikh community clearly are
we've had
very, very
3 genocides, and the first 2 we knew who the enemy was and we knew what we had to do about it. This third one came with a massive amount of propaganda and actually left us confused about who had done what to us and who was to blame. So I think part of what we have to do now as young Sikhs, and what we're trying to do actually, is to combat that propaganda and explain exactly what happened using factual research. So Harjinder Singh with his book, myself, we've got a 12-week course that we teach, which starts from Guru Nanak and then ends up with now. And we've put up all the research, all the recent ones been talking about from 1925 to now. And like the movie you were talking about, the fact is that we've been told this is a Hindu-Sikh issue when it wasn't. We've been told it's a separatist issue when it wasn't. What it was about is about suppressing a bunch of Sikhs who'd always tried to get freedom for the common person in India. So I think the agenda is very different from what the agenda has been set. It's not really about... it's about... Look, I'll give you an example, yeah? Indians really enjoy the fact that Sikhs fought for freedom against the British, right? Obviously, they recognise that 90% of the sacrifices were given by Sikhs. So it's great when they're fighting for Indians. It's great. When they fight against Indira Gandhi's emergency in 1977, again, brilliant. Sikhs are hailed as bastions of democracy. But when they start fighting for their own rights, oh no, we can't have that. But you can't take freedom-loving people and only ask them to fight for your freedom. They will fight for everybody's freedom. And I think this is what the issue here is about.
Well, that's what the Anandpur Sahib resolution does make. Because I read it yesterday, actually, that it does talk about all minorities, doesn't it, in India? It talks about religious minorities across India. Sunny Handel. Sunny, this disconnect, do you see that what both Jagraj and Sarabjit are saying about a more measured approach, do you recognise that amongst young Sikhs, or do you think that there is an element of extremism creeping into the debate amongst young Sikhs? Because that's something that's been voiced by older Sikhs to this show before.
No, I think there's definitely an element of creeping extremism within the Sikh community in the UK. And well, actually, it's not recent. It's been there for quite a while. Jagraj talked about the 3 genocides the Sikhs have faced. Actually, there are 4 genocides, and the 4th one is going on right now.
Which is the drug epidemic.
Which is the drug epidemic, but more importantly, the female feticide in India, where, Punjab is one of the worst states in India.
I believe it's the worst.
The worst state in India for, the level of a number of girls to boys. And, the fact of the matter is this is going on right now. And guess what? It's not... the Indian government doing it, it's Sikhs themselves doing it to themselves. It's Sikhs themselves in the drug abuse. Hold on. It's the Sikhs themselves who are drinking alcohol. And it's not... And what frustrates me is that there is hardly any focus on that. And there is hardly any focus on talking about the internal social problems. How do we deal with them? How do we educate people to get out of this rut? And then also... And so the focus has become overshadowed by 1984 ever since, and there's almost hardly any intellectual space.
Can you disconnect the two things? Can you say that one is not linked to the other?
How is 1984 the result of what's going on in India right now? I mean,
No, it's the other way round. It's how is the drug epidemic the result of 1984 is the question.
No,
let Jagraj come back on that.
We've made this leaflet. This is a leaflet that we've worked with the Federation of Sikh organisations to make this leaflet, which talks about pre-1984, June 1984, November, and then what's happened 1984 to now. So did we see this? And Sarabjit Singh's been a very good guy who's made videos about the invisible war on Sikhs or the faceless war on Sikhs. This drug epidemic is absolutely linked to what happened before 1984 and after. The policy is about taking the anak, the Punjabi word anak, out of the Sikhs, which is basically that they will stand up for freedom and for human rights. And how you do that is by flooding Punjab with drugs and alcohol. And if you look at other states...
Is it not its proximity to the Pakistani
Let me just teach you, because I'll put this... So the things that Sunny
Isn't it just easier to get hold of drugs in Punjab than it is in Tamil Nadu, simply because of its proximity to the Pakistani and Afghan border?
Not only that. It's because of the freedom that drugs are allowed to flood through and there's no regulation. So basically... Let me finish. Hold on. There's a whole point here about invisible war on Sikhs, and I've addressed that point about feticide in there as well, because I think Sunny's got... He thinks I'm avoiding the issue, so I'm going to... So firstly, in states where there is a lot of police presence and they don't allow female feticide to carry on unchecked, it's very low. But in Punjab, there's no restriction. The government doesn't care.
It's rubbish.
Secondly, when it comes to drugs, okay, very much Punjab is flooded with drug centres and the police don't crack down on drug dealers.
That's rubbish.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay.
And afterwards, we've got T-Share Singh, who's the Canadian Sikh from SikhChic.com, also on the line, who's in Ontario in Canada. T-Share Singh, we will come to you in a moment.
I want to respond to what you said.
I'll just let Sarabjit come back in. Sarabjit, sir.
Okay, thanks, Nihal. When we talk about the legacy of Operation Bluestar, during the 1980s, when we were asking for civil and human rights, where was the alcohol problem then, or the drugs epidemic, the farmer suicide, the female feticide, the cancerous water, the uranium poisoning, the unemployment? Where were these problems? I mean, this is where we talk about the legacy. Not only did the Indian government use the full might of the armed forces to crack down on what they perceived as Sikh separatism, but by 1995, when it sort of assumed that they'd sort of cracked down on militancy and got rid of it, this new faceless war came in because India needed to come into the 21st century. They needed to be seen as a democratic civil country. So they thought, rather than keep firing bullets and throwing Sikh bodies into the river, why not wage a different war? Listen to what. So, okay, if you talk about alcohol, let's just go with the alcohol. There are more government-owned liquor stores in Punjab than there are government-owned schools.
So is anyone forcing the Sikhs to drink that?
No, exactly. Okay.
One second. Jagraj and Sarabjit, there has been, of course, many Sikhs who have great issue with the amount of alcohol-related songs there are out there representing the culture. So is there much more of a predilection to drinking?
What stops Sikhs drinking is Sikhism.
Yes, right, it's being baptised as a Sikh. Yes,
so
of course.
Sanjay Singh Ji was one of the people that was stopping Sikhs from drinking.
I mean, you can argue,
so by getting rid of the preachers, anybody who stood up for Sikhi post 1984 or even before 94, if they stood up,
but there are still
Gurdwaras
in the Punjab that will clearly say there are still plenty of Amritari Sikhs in Punjab who will clearly say you should not drink.
Indeed.
So why are the young people not listening to them?
But this is it can't just be a one thing. You can't just pick out one thing, the alcohol, and then say, it's Sikhs' fault. The thing is Sikhism is being made. Firstly, Punjabi is being attacked. So Sikhs aren't getting into Sikhism because Punjabi is being attacked. Punjabi is now seen as an uncultured language. So if you take the language of
but by who? Sorry, is this a government conspiracy? I don't understand. Okay.
Yes, it is a government conspiracy.
Let me respond to some of these points. I mean, look, I'm sorry, but
there has been, just very quickly, has there not, a great deal of grievances, and this is not a government issue, but the way, for instance, Sikhs have been represented in Bollywood for many years as joke characters, as buffoons.
Yeah.
And
I've seen Muslims...
So is it part of the psyche of India to represent Sikhs in a negative way, do you think?
It is a part of psyche of the Indian establishment to portray every minority in a negative way. Dalits are not treated well, Muslims are not treated well, Christians are not treated well. It goes across the board, right? So that's the first point. I mean, Bollywood is never represented.
So you do admit then that there is a state
I've never liked
oppression
Bollywood.
Of minorities.
I've never liked Bollywood, but you know what, Nihal, has never affected my life. I can happily ignore Bollywood and still educate myself and, get involved in issues that I'm concerned about. What frustrates me...
Hold on. One second.
Can you actually listen to the debate, please? The point I'm trying to make is that Sikhs are very good. Punjabis generally have become fantastic at playing the victim and saying everything is a government conspiracy. And actually, there are other parts of India which have done worse. Bihar is a lawless state. Uttar Pradesh is in a horrible state. So it's not like the central government does not have that much power to have this conspiracy to make Sikhs drink alcohol, to force drug abuse, to force domestic violence on them, to force female feticide. That is part of our own culture, and that is part of how these people have developed, and that is part of the political failure on behalf of the Akali Dal, the local political parties there, the people there who themselves go around calling themselves Sikhs, who have perpetuated appreciated this. I mean, only today there was a video at the Golden Temple this morning of a fight breaking out and people waving swords at each other. I mean,
Can I just take issue? I've heard a text about that from somebody. They said that some of the people in Punjab, when they checked the people that actually wave swords about, turned out they were actually pretending to be Sikhs. These are people that have put turbans on.
This was in the Golden Temple. We're talking about the procession.
Do you think people can't dress up as turbans?
But of course, that would assume, of course, just like any other group, that there can't be infighting within groups, and we know, just like in any other group, there's always infighting. Even Lord Inderjeet Singh said to me, because I made a comment about if you put a Sri Lankan on his own in a room, there'll be an argument, and he laughed and said the same thing we say about Sikhs.
But I'm not. Sandeep must admit this, that there is actually a group within the RSS. There is actually a group which have taken Amrit. Okay, they wear turbans, they wear beards, and they're part of the RSS.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And I'm not a big fan of the RSS. So how can it be that we can say Sikhs have done this?
Okay, can I just stop you? I'm not a fan of the RSS. Can I just stop this discussion between two brothers here, quite literally two brothers? I was about to go to our gentleman in Canada, but he's now just fallen off the line, so I can continue. It's quite interesting. Sarabjit, can I just mention a point? Sorry, my friend. It's just that Sunny and Jagraj, for those people listening, are actually brothers.
Yeah.
And you are on two completely different planes.
No, we're not on completely different sides. I agree with all the problems Sunny's been raising. They are the problems that we need to address. And we are trying to address them as Base of Sikhi. But it's trying to educate Sikhs about Sikhi. So it's not the fact that Sikhs aren't addressing these issues.
Yes, quite.
People are getting into Sikhism from the works that we're doing.
Okay, let's bring Sarabjit.
Sarabjit. I actually, the fact that they're brothers, I agree with what Sunny's saying.
I mean, literally brothers.
Yeah. I agree with Sunny in the fact that nobody from the Indian government brings a big bad hand down to an individual and makes them drink a glass. Nobody ties a noose around a farmer and makes him commit suicide. Nobody is injecting a big bad hand from the government. He's injecting an individual with drugs. The problem is that the majority, according to articles from like the New York Times, is that the majority of these people who are taking drugs, who are drinking this alcohol, are completely illiterate and they're unemployed.
Yeah.
Where is the outside investment in Punjab to make sure that these people are not only literate but given jobs? A perfect example of this, Nihal, is where you're from in London. I'm sitting in Birmingham. You must have run a story about this. There were people who we call, freshies, illegal immigrants who came from Punjab. They ran, swam, skipped, hopped, jumped into lorries to come to London and sleep under bridges and catch diseases. They were catching diseases, Nihal.
Yes.
They would rather do that than stay in Punjab. So what is so bad in Punjab that is making our youth run from there and sleep under bridges in the UK?
A lack of opportunity, I'd say.
Of course, and where does that lack of opportunity come from?
Well, I mean, it partly comes from Sikhs themselves. I mean, look, I think it's useful to say, that the Indian government has not done anything to help Sikhs, but the central government in India actually is really weak anyway. And, the point is that other states in India have also done badly, but other states have done really well. For example, take Kerala, one of the poorest states in the country, but highly educated. The level of female feticide there is so low that actually there's more women than men in that state, as it should be. But in Punjab, there was an ActionAid report, 2009. In some villages, they found there were as many as 300 girls to 1,000 boys. Yeah. Female feticide, the fact that we know there is a massive domestic violence.
Punjab has the most amount of illegal abortion clinics and ultrasound clinics in the rest of India.
Right, and exactly. And those are private clinics. This is not a government conspiracy. My point is, it's the mentality that makes people want to do this.
Can I just interject? There's a program in India which is called Satyamev Jayate. Yeah, by Amir Khan. You must have heard about that. It's been a big phenomenon. He did a whole series on female feticide. And in that series on female feticide, he looked at Punjab specifically. And it's not that we're hiding away from that issue. Because it's one of the worst states in the country. But the point he raised there is that in places in Punjab, okay, where the government had stepped in and the police had stepped in to actually crack down on and enforce a law of India, it had worked. But mostly the police were not worried about this because it was Sikh kids that were being killed.
No, wait. So look, again, this is a conspiracy theory, right?
But it's true.
You see, the thing is, in India... Hold on. Let me make the point. Sorry, let me just respond to that quickly. Look, the law in India is rubbish at enforcing anything across the board, which goes all the way from checking doctors all the way to stopping dowry. It's incumbent on Sikhs to change the mentality so that people are not going to villages and burying the daughters in matkas. That's what they do. I wrote it in my book, and it was called kabutri something. It was killing the kabutri or something like that. And the point is, there is a whole mentality of doing this, and it's got nothing to do with the number of clinics, because they are simply, responding to the demand.
Yeah,
okay, guys, I want to bring T-Share Singh in, because he's been waiting for some time now. Okay. A Canadian Sikh from SikhChic.com, who's in Ontario in Canada right now. T-Share Singh, very warm welcome to the BBC Asian Network.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the gentleman speaking so far about issues very much pertaining to what's going on in the Punjab now.
Yes, I have.
But tell me, as someone who runs SikhChic.com, and especially in Canada, of course, which has a large diaspora like we do here in the UK, tell me, what do young Sikhs tell you about what they want to happen?
Well, what they know is that 1984 is not 30 years away. It is still alive, it is still raw, it is still relevant for young and old, for Sikhs across the board. It is something that has remained very important, relevant, and continues to be very much part of our lives, and will remain so until the justice has been obtained. Sikhs are very human rights oriented, justice oriented, and until and unless we make sure that the rogue element in India that has turned and has always been turned against minorities, against women, against anybody who does not cater to the mainstream corrupt elite, until that is corrected, until democracy is truly practiced in India, Sikhs will fight, and Sikhs across the board, regardless of where they stand on the spectrum, regardless of what views they have, they're united in one thing in particular, and that is that justice needs to be delivered on 1984, and then the rest will flow from it.
Sarabjit, can I ask you about an issue that Paul Uppal brought up, the MP, when he said that a young Sikh he spoke to said, there'll be no closure, we want nothing to do with Hindus. Mm-hmm. This kind of division, what are your feelings about this, the more extreme end of the debate from the Sikh community?
Right, no, it's a pertinent question. I think it just depends on what someone's definition of being extreme is, because as far as I'm concerned, the only thing I've seen about, regarding extremism and Sikhism with the connection with the both is that we've uncovered extreme human rights abuses, even as British Sikhs.
Do you not think it an extreme view to wish to disassociate yourself from Hindus?
Of course, and to be honest, if we look at the
that would be extremism then? No,
but that's somebody's viewpoint. That's if you look at the collective or the Sikh philosophy, it's all about...
But that's how Muslim extremism is defined, by extreme views. Therefore, you're willing to say that extremism is extreme abuses of human rights. Of course it is, absolutely. But equally, surely you do have to look within extreme elements within your own communities as well, and do something to not pacify them.
Sikhs are fighting extremism. They are not being extremists.
Well, there are examples of Sikh extremism.
What has happened in 84 and what is happening now, we are fighting extremism. The country has been taken over
But T-Share Singh, you're in Canada, where, of course, the Canadian government felt that there were Sikh extremists who downed an Air India jet.
That was not true. They didn't do it. They were cleared off it.
They weren't. The bomb maker was a Sikh, and he was convicted of it. He recently lost an appeal.
Nihal, if you read Zuhair Kashmiri and Neil McAndrew's book, Soft Target...
No, I'm going from what the Canadian government have said about this.
The Canadian government was involved in that.
The Canadian government were also...
it was predominantly Canadian citizens involved in that. Very few Indians were involved in that.
The Indian government was involved.
No, the Indian government intelligence was involved.
I think this is a side debate. Look,
side debate. No, Sonny, I think you're taking it onto a side debate, because you want to keep talking about, we do need to talk about current issues, but the question that Nihal is asking us, and I think this is what the debate is about, why are we, who are outside of India, harping on about this? You know why, Nihal? We talk about never forgetting a genocide. Mate, they don't allow us to forget this genocide.
Sure. And I'm not actually disagreeing with that point.
Hear me out. The reason why we aren't allowed to forget 1984 is because we are used to a civil democratic country like the UK. We are used to a country where if the head of the Cleveland police is misusing his credit card and racking up a bill for £80,000 in 4 years, he is suspended and he is arrested for theft and...
Sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, we're talking about a country in India where a third of the MPs in the Lok Sabha have some kind of criminal investigation under it.
Of course, you asked me about my state in Punjab. Do you know who is in charge of law and order?
But can I bring you back to this idea about... Because the reason I asked that question is because someone tweeted me this morning after I said how sad it was to see what was going on in the Golden Temple in Punjab today. And they said to me, we'll never get what we want unless we're united. Mm-hmm. And that is why I asked that question, Sarabjit, is you as a young Sikh, and especially someone with quite some influence, as my Twitter timeline will attest to once you started tweeting me the other day, someone with some influence, does it not worry you that divisions within the Sikh community itself will get in the way of you achieving the aims that you wish to achieve?
Division will always be there, Nihal, because not everybody has the same thinking.
Of course, and you're not a homogenous group, but what I'm saying is, how do you bring unity?
This is why we bought these YouTube channels, like what Jagraj is doing, myself, and other groups out there who are doing great work, is to bring about that education. I myself, 15 years ago, used to think that Sant Pindarawal was a terrorist, and he was to blame for what happened in 84. Only when I'd done a history degree and I'd done my dissertation on Operation Bluestar did I start uncovering the facts. And I thought to myself, if we can bring these facts that have been hidden from the public eye to the Sikh public or the public at large, then we can see some major changes. And the response that we've had, I have had people who've said that it was right what happened, the killings were right, and they've suddenly watched some of these videos and thought, hang on, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know this was happening.
I've had a situation myself where people said to me, look, I was anti-Hindu.
Sure.
And I hated Hindus, and now I don't. So the thing is...
So just to be very clear...
to address that point about being...
the person who approached Paul Uppal,
right, so what
would you say to that young Sikh?
I would say to that person, listen, the issue that is in your head is the same issue that was raised by the Indian government back then. They made it about divide and conquer. This was not a Hindu-Sikh issue. This was a human rights issue, and it's been made into a Hindu-Sikh issue, and therefore, by educating, if you look at the people that are involved in education, every single one of the people that I know involved in education does not preach against Hindus. What they say is learn about it, and you realise it was more than this. So actually, it's the propaganda. It's only going to be countered by...
Let's bring Sunny back in. Let's bring Sunny back in, because both of you roughly agree with each other, Jagraj and Sarabjit. Sunny?
Well, what frustrates me about this is that the debate that 1984 overshadows all debate within the Sikh community, and there is no discussion about actually how 1984 has stopped development, intellectual development, social development of Sikhs since then, and what's going on right now.
Is that because, for instance, that the Sikh community hasn't had its Nuremberg trials in the same way that the Jewish community has been able to move on to a certain degree because they have seen the perpetrators of the crimes committed against them?
I don't think that's entirely true. I think there's a lot of Sikhs.
Well, who has been brought to justice then for what happened?
I'm not denying that the Indian government. But there's a separate question. The question is the community unable to move on, and is there justice being delivered? So I'm not saying that the two are the same questions.
Can you separate the two?
Yeah, because I'm saying that not every Sikh is constantly thinking about 1984 and constantly thinking about, what happened then 30 years ago. So I'm saying that there are people who want to move forward and want to have an intellectual debate about what can we do to better Sikhs now, and where do we go from here? And that debate is never had.
But reconciliation, Nihal, means nothing without an admission of guilt.
No, but this... Wait. Guilt of who? We're talking about the Indian government here.
Of course. So how do you expect...
But there were individuals involved.
Hold on. I'm talking about a different issue, though. Listen to my point I'm trying to make. I'm saying
let's
within
make
the
that
Sikh
point.
community, what frustrates me is that within the Sikh community, there is no other political debate other than 1984.
Right, okay.
That's not true. How much has somebody been involved in the Sikh community anyway?
Well, last week, for instance...
I do a lot of politics, and I follow a lot of the politics, and my point is that everything that happens almost always comes back to India in 1984. And
so basically the turban issue in France and other issues that, our Sikh leadership have dealt with. 1984, I'll tell you why 1984 is still a major issue. But you're
feeding into my point.
Let Sarabjit finish his point first. Go on.
The reason why 1984 is such a huge topic still is because not only have the perpetrators this culture of impunity, this culture of impunity still exists.
Yeah.
And in 2 days, Nihal, we will be in Hyde Park doing a rally. I can't remember the last time in Hyde Park when a Sikh was shot dead, arrested, or beaten, or there was some civil disorder. But I can name you 3 protests, peaceful protests in Punjab in the last 3 years, where 3 innocent Sikhs have been shot dead by the police without a single investigation.
Hold on. Wait, no one is denying any of this.
Yeah,
but you're missing the point.
Okay, all right. No, you don't need to.
The point is actually that 1984 overshadows all debates about
there have been, have there not? There have been Jewish people who have said exactly the same thing about what happened to the Jewish nation, that the fact that you cannot be defined by it as a Sikh, or you should not be defined.
And there are loads of Sikhs who don't want to be defined by 1984.
The argument is, Jagraj, is that you should be defined not only by the negatives inflicted upon your race, but by the positive contributions that your race and your people and your culture and your religion have given.
As an organisation, for the last 2 years, we've been criticised for not talking about 1984 enough.
Right.
Yeah. We've made this leaflet now after 2 years of being in existence. But
Do
prior
you
to
find
that,
it then
for the
frustrating?
For the last 2 years, we're talking about Sikhi, trying to teach people what is the message of Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
You're a religious organisation, of course. I'm not criticising you.
The point that Sunny's making here is that as far as he sees people in the political sphere, obviously people that are more politically educated, more politically active, are going to talk about 1984 because that is the major political issue facing the Sikhs.
And
but does it sometimes frustrate you?
Spirituality, that is not the only political problem facing Sikhs, and that's my point. There are actually major problems facing the Sikh community, and actually the focus is so much on 1984 that all those
point
things
is, I take it
are
that these
drowned
guys, the point that you two are trying to make, of course, is that they're all linked, and without redress of one, you can't have redress of the other.
Seems to think that it's possible Sunny seems to think that it's possible for us to deal with the alcohol and drugs issues in Punjab without addressing the human rights problem in Punjab.
Yes.
However, as Sarabjit was just talking just now,
you can do both, can't you?
Let me just give you an example.
In parallel.
Sumit Saini, he is a person who has been convicted, who has killed so many Sikhs, and guess what he is right now? The DGP of Punjab Police. Jaspal Singh last year was how is it possible for us to go? How is it possible for us to even, for example, the organisation I was working with 12 years ago when I went to India, Fateh, they were involved in working for.
So how does that increase female feticide?
Let me say it then.
So,
for example, okay, if I go to Punjab now and I start preaching about Sikhi. Let's just say I just stick to what I do. Japji Sahib, Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Let's learn about Sikhi. Let's go back towards Guruji's missions. We made a video saying even a person who kills their daughter is no longer a Sikh. So people that come into Sikhi, they will stop drinking alcohol, they will stop doing drugs, and they will stop killing their daughters because that is what Sikhi is preaching. However, you can't preach Sikhi in Punjab. If I went to Punjab, I'd get killed. Okay. I'll tell you now.
So then who are the Sikhs in the Golden Temple? Because presumably they're currently preaching Sikhi, aren't they?
No, if you look at the Sikhs in the UK, if you ask Sikhs abroad...
Are you saying there's a purer form of Sikhi being preached here in the UK than in the Punjab?
Absolutely, 100%. Sikhs from Punjab come here and say, you know what?
There may be Sikhs in the Harmandir Sahib who would disagree with you.
Do a poll. Sikhs from Punjab come here and they tell us Sikhi is alive here, it's not in Punjab.
Okay, all right. I want to bring Manjeet in, because Manjeet's got... Sorry, Sarabjit. Okay. Manjeet has just got in contact with us as a Sikh who was born in Delhi. Manjeet, hello.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. What would you like to say?
Thanks for taking my call. And I'm not a good speaker, but I haven't heard your program, but I want to give my point of view.
You're most welcome, Manjeet.
Yeah, I'm a Sikh, born in Delhi, and did my education all up to graduation. I'm an accountant here. Before this Sikh drama started, these people called Khalistani Singhs, we were respected so much in Delhi. There was no fight between any other people when they see any Singh standing there. There was no need to put a no smoking sign when Singh was there.
Manjeet, can I just ask you, have you read... Manjeet, can I just ask you a question? Have you read the Anandpur Sahib resolution?
No, I'm not interested. I'm just saying how
he's not.
I feel.
That's great.
So what if he hasn't? I don't understand.
Because he doesn't understand what Sikhs are talking about. This was the propaganda. He's brought the propaganda.
Oh, I see. He's brought the propaganda apart from you guys.
Okay, let Manjeet finish his point. Wait a minute.
Can you listen to the guy?
Let Manjeet finish. I do wish to get in the way of this brotherly vibe that's going on here, but Manjeet wants to speak. Manjeet, go on.
Yeah, let me speak. They can talk 24 hours. You will get nowhere. But my views is we Sikh Sikh people have lost respect due to this frightening terrorist Bhindranwale people. And this when this blue water started, we were having, if that Bhindranwale was proper Guru Gobind Singh, he should have come out and surrender it before, yeah. But he had more ammunition than Indian army.
Come on.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Did he have more? Were his weapons stronger than 10 Vijayantha battle tanks that weigh 1 ton each and can fire 30 miles away?
Battle tank came after when they saw what he has got.
Okay.
There was no battle tank outside.
There was no. Okay, that's fine. Okay, Nihal.
So Sarabjit, let's bring Sarabjit back in. Go on, Sarabjit.
Nihal, what's particularly galling, and I think this is why it's quite pertinent to talk about British Sikhs.
Yeah.
Imagine the Prime Minister of nearly 1 billion people, and after the documents came out of British collusion regarding Operation Bluestar, you know the letter that Indira Gandhi wrote to Margaret Thatcher in the aftermath?
Can I just say that David Cameron's come out and said one military official was sent out, and none of the advice that the military official was given was taken. Yeah?
But can I just make this point in the letter? Indira Gandhi says that those of all the malefactors, those who wear the religious garb are the most dangerous. If nothing else, Nihal, if we prove nothing else, if Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister, is criminalising an appearance, she is characterising an appearance with criminality, what do you think those Sikhs faced? Can you imagine any other country, the Prime Minister of any other country, saying those Sikhs who have a turban and a beard and have an affinity to their faith are a criminalised group?
Well, I mean, Winston Churchill said a lot of things about Indians in general before. What did he say? Indians are not fit for civilization or something like that.
Well, so that's fine, but how many Indians were living in England at the time when he said it? Was he brutalising those Indians? Was he using draconian laws like National Security Act, TADA?
Sarabjit, when was the last time you visited the Punjab?
The last time I visited Nihal was in 2009. And
how did you find it? I mean, just as someone walking through the streets, I don't know if you're in Jalandhar or Chandigarh or you were out in the Pind, how did you find it? How did you feel?
I was particularly heartbroken because even in my village alone, there are a few families who have lost people during Operation Woodrose, something that was mentioned in the aftermath of Bluestar, and they've never seen those kids again. There are people in my village who lost people during Operation Bluestar, and there's not even been a coroner's report or a death certificate to certify that they died there. You know, they haven't even got that closure. There are drug addicts in my village. I defy any Punjabi out there to say they don't know somebody who's a drug addict.
Can I ask you, what are they doing on the ground? Because, of course, it doesn't need to be one or the other. It doesn't need to be, does it? Unless we find justice, we can't do anything about the drugs. What is being done by Punjabis such as yourself, and of course you don't live there, so it's difficult for you to be there on a day-to-day basis, but what are they doing to combat
what is Nihal? You know why it's difficult, and it's something that Jagraj has said. I have been told by a well-wisher, and you know, that don't step foot back in Punjab after you've started RajoanaTV and the videos that I've made. All I've talked about is a wholesale genocide and probably covered 1% of it. I have been labelled an extremist. Even on one of your shows, Nihal, last year, somebody phoned in and that said Sarabjit Singh RajoanaTV is radicalising the youth. Nihal, you may have seen some of my videos. I don't point at any particular race of people or religion to say this is the reason why it's happened. I just simply am exposing a system that has killed a minority of people, and for that I don't think I am welcome in India. And if I land in Rajasthansi Airport in Amritsar, I don't think anybody is going to see me again.
Can I tell you something? Recently, to back this up, I was involved with a Gurdwara committee person talking to them. He said, listen, if you want to walk the path of truth within the Gurdwara community, within the Gurdwara committees, forget going to India.
Okay.
Forget going to India.
If
you want to change Gurdwara, you want to change the Sikhi, then you're risking the Indian government killing you.
Okay. I mean, I think that Gurdwaras over here are a problem in itself as well, let alone India, but that's a separate debate. I mean, Nihal, before I came onto the show, I actually spoke to the producers and I said, you know, it'd be really good if instead of me, there was a woman there. And what was instructive to me was, and I got told by the producers here, that so many people were afraid to come onto the show and talk, or were afraid of speaking out.
That's very true. That is very true.
Women were afraid of speaking out and saying something controversial because they thought they would get intimidated, get threats from people. There is a macho culture within the Sikh community in the UK too, and I saw this most importantly in 2005 when I was standing up for Gurpreet Bhatti, who wrote the play which they wanted to shut down because they claimed that it was insulting to Sikhs, and at that time there were loads of people making loads of rubbish, slurs about her. So this. What frustrates me is that even within the Sikh community here, there is no discussion about the macho culture, about the fact that these people go around intimidating people. I mean, just take those people who are going around stopping marriages between Sikhs and non-Sikhs at Gurdwaras,
but Sonny,
big days.
What about groups like the BNP or the EDL? Are they reflective of the indigenous white population?
But we have white people in the UK who go out and protest against the EDL and the BNP. How many Sikhs have done that?
We have actually. We've got Sikhs against the EDL.
No, I'm not talking about against the EDL. I'm talking about the Sikhs within.
It's interesting. It's interesting that, but the point you made, Sobjit, was actually essentially what you were saying is, look, there are extremists in all communities, but we don't judge entire communities.
Yeah, but no one is judging all Sikhs.
No. But the interesting point is that is an admission, Sobjit, is it not, that there are elements within the Sikh community that you feel are extreme.
By the same token, Nihal, we talk about this label of extremism. Even in the 2 hours before this show, this label of extremism, Sant bin Rawal was an extremist, and Mark Tully often talks about it. People often forget the fact that that man wasn't judicially.
But we're not talking about Sant bin Rawal.
Sonny, listen to what I'm saying, because I'm going to get to this extremist point. He was simply labelled as an extremist, and he was executed as one without being judicially given a verdict of guilt.
Can I just ask you? Let's get back to this debate. I want to get back to this debate about young British Sikhs, because Rajwana TV does have a huge sway over what young Sikhs. The majority of them were sending me very encouraging tweets about getting you on. There were some, of course, that were abusive, and they were to be fair, other Sikhs did tweet them and tell them to stop doing that.
Of course,
but
people move in different ways, Nihal.
Quite. But you have a responsibility, don't you? Right, in what you put out. Now, is your message saying that there should be a separate homeland for Sikhs? It is saying that?
The reason why it is saying that, and I would categorically say it does say that, is because I defy anybody to tell me what has changed in the government of India, in the constitution, in their letter of the law, to make sure this genocide and the continued genocide never happens again. What has changed in that country to make sure Sikhs aren't butchered and Harmandir Sahib isn't attacked again?
But that one does not. That doesn't mean that you have to have a Sikh homeland.
Can I ask you realistically? Because of course there are as you well know, Sobjit, there are Sikhs, including in the people who drew up the Anandpur Sahib resolution, who did not want a separate state.
Of course, and this is the key element.
So you're divided immediately.
No, we are divided. But then there was this key statement that if the Indian Army ever invade Harmandir Sahib with their full force, then the foundation stone of Khalistan will be laid. And this is the popular misconception, Nihal. Operation Bluestar wasn't conducted to get rid of Khalistanis, and this horrible, stupid notion that Brar has peddled on the BBC and other channels to say that Khalistan was going to be created with the help of Russia and Pakistan. Operation Bluestar created the concept of Khalistan, because by taking the fight to Harmandir Sahib, the fourth most visited place in the world, a place of tranquility and peace, by taking armaments there, and after Sant bin Rawal had been militarily neutralised, i.e. made shaheed, that's when Christian Science Monitor report said the majority of the killings happened of civilians. And did those armaments go back to Delhi?
I've read that the Indian government succeeded in making people more extreme, because ultimately there were plenty of people in the Sikh community in India who were not fans of Bindramala, but they were made to be ones afterwards.
I thought the debate was going to be focused on the UK and the aftermath of 84, and not exactly what happened in 1984. I mean, we keep on going back to 1984, even though you discussed the issue for the last 2 hours.
Can I ask you? I keep trying to bring it back, to be fair.
But you're not.
Okay, let me address the thugs issue. What Sunny raised earlier about the weddings. Yeah. Okay. For example, if you're a policeman and you want to uphold the letter of the law, are you an extremist?
But if the occult...
let me ask.
Okay, but wait a minute, Jagraj, there's a way of doing things, right? So the occult tuct issues an edict saying that only Sikh can marry Sikh in Gurdwaras, right?
And why the Gurdwara didn't follow it then?
That's very... No, true. But is the way to deal with that by throwing bricks through windows of old people, which is what
No one is agreeing with that. And myself as well.
What do you think these people do then?
No, I didn't. Well, what did they do? The
letter of the law in this country says. The letter of the law in this country says you do not disrupt people's weddings and break the law.
No, that's the way you can stop someone's wedding.
Everyone can't speak at the same time. Sorry,
can I just say, Sonny? Okay, Nihal, Sonny. You know this issue of
please don't mention 1984, please. Not just because we want to try and keep it UK based for the last 40 seconds.
Of course. You know, this issue of Khalistan has become a rosy, cosy word just to legitimise and demonise one community. What Khalistan done was, all it done was it was a word that took away from the major constitutional demand, citizens' rights, judicial review.
It'd be a terrible idea, but that's besides the point. There isn't a debate within the community about what does it mean to have a religious state. I mean, religious states failed themselves everywhere, and they have failed, and they will fail in the future.
The Sikh Raj was very successful.
Well, so that was a dictatorship run by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. It's not the same as having it's not a democratic state. The point is that Israel, you can see elements of, where this have increased segregation, loss of rights for people, loss of rights for minorities. You see in Pakistan now with Ahmadiyas getting killed, people's familiars, all this sort of stuff happens because of people saying we need to have a state based on religion. Having a state based on religion is the worst idea ever. And what frustrates me is that there's no proper debate within the community also about whether having a Khalistan would be a good idea. No, it's just assumed that
unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there. Gentlemen, Sarabjit and Jagraj and Sunny, thank you very much indeed for coming in today to talk about this very important day and a very important weekend. So thank you very much indeed for sharing your opinions here on the BBC Asian Network.